IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, your peak performance coach, life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and NLP practitioner. I'm also the founder of Abso Expertise Unique, and my organization constantly aims at building leaders across continents. After having worked with so many dynamic business honchos, entrepreneurs, startups, CEOs, management gurus, parents, and student communities worldwide, I am convinced that every individual has unleashed potential, and all we really need to do is realize it. Watch the magic unfold, enhance quality of life, relationships, and professions. On my show, be ready for some riveting conversations with inspirational people, snippets, stories, and much more. So here I am on this exceptional journey to find empowerment and inspiration anywhere I can. Come join me on this breathtaking path of self-realization, potential maximization, positivity, and most of all, embrace your inner power. You are on your way to empowering yourselves. Welcome to the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. On today's episode, I'm in conversation with the Joint Managing Director of a very thought out and beautifully carved development, Ashiana Housing Ltd. Please welcome Ankur Gupta. Hello, Ankur.
Hi, Zarina.
How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you today. And I'd love to start with asking you, how have the past few months been treating you?
It's been an interesting last few months, locked into the house, trying to learn working from home, spending a lot of time with family. I have a daughter who's 6 years old, so loving that time with her. So it's been interesting.
Mm-hmm. And while being at home, things that you may have realized during this whole lockdown or things that you probably spent more time on with family, what are the things that probably were enlightening for you?
So I think the first month, the time I spent with my daughter was very interesting because she's 6 years old, getting to know English and math, and going through her learning curve kind of taught me patience, taught me different ways of looking at the same thing. It's almost like, training her to become better, and it was a very interesting thing. And my wife also has work and kind of, she's basically runs a center for special need kids, and she's moved to complete teletherapy, and also helping her out, kind of getting to know her work a little more, which was kind of different and kind of nice.
That's beautiful. So, Ashiana Housing Limited has a very unique proposition to offer. And I think over a period of time, the brand has built itself beautifully. How about you tell us your story and about the journey?
Oh, wow, it's been a long time. Actually, my father started this company in 1979 in Patna, and there were seven partners, and in '84, six partners decided to go separate ways, and my father continued with the real estate business, and in '86 he went to Jamshedpur. One of the things, my dad had realized earlier, that if he wants to do business, he wants to make sure it's of quality. And what he realized was, in the middle income size segment, there was a big gap, and he kind of built that around. And then we went to Bhiwadi, and what we learned a lot in Bhiwadi on the middle income side, and that's where our next project of senior living was kind of thought through. So my dad, after '86 in Jamshedpur, in '92, '93, entered Bhiwadi. We had to shift out of Patna, and he started in Delhi and started in Bhiwadi. So the brand, has taken a lot of shape, and it's very interesting to see how Dad thought. And what we realized over the years was that he always thought to be a pioneer. He was the pioneer in getting apartment living to Patna, Jamshedpur, Bhiwadi, Neemrana, and one of the first guys to start facility management. And the story on the facility management is also very interesting. I think, what projects he had delivered in Patna in '80s, he went to see that project back in '85, '86, very proud of the work he has done, and found out those projects were looking shabby. And then he went to a friend of his in Jamshedpur, and he said, you started discussing this issue out, why is this shabby? And this particular gentleman, Mr. Mattu, was the head of maintenance services of Jamshedpur town with Tata. And he said, why don't you maintain your projects? So, in 1989, he started maintaining his first project. And since then, we've been maintaining those projects till now. So, it's the idea that we're in touch with consumers, we're trying to change lives, and that's what has been driving the brand. And over the years, then we kind of changed into senior living. That's another interesting story with that. Was the fact that in Bhiwadi, when we started, it was doing very well because the industries were buying in. But in the 96, 97 slowdown of the industries, the market had stopped. So my elder brother and my dad said, "What do we do?" And they started putting ads out to the Delhi newspaper and the Delhi Consumer. And the consumers who were coming were all senior citizens who wanted cheaper housing, closer to Delhi, high quality, green spaces, environment friendly, pollution free kind of a thing. And that's what we were delivering at 5 6 lakh rupees at that time. And most of the consumers were senior citizens. The other part was my dad was studying in Bichpilani, and there were two kinds of students there. One was custard and one was mustard. Mustard were people who spoke Hindi, and custard were people who spoke English. And my dad was mustard, and he couldn't speak English, but he had high dreams. So he actually went and studied in the US. He did his master's in computer science, but couldn't speak very good English. So when he went to the university helped him out by sending him to a close by senior living where a senior citizen spoke to him and made his spoken English fluent. And he had this sense of gratitude always. And I think this combination, when he saw a market, he remembered what he had got from the seniors at that time, and he kind of put those two and two together. And then me, my elder brother, researched for about 3 4 years, and in 2002 we got the land. In 2003 we launched our first senior living project in Bhiwadi, and since then it's been a wonderful ride. I can't thank God enough for the opportunities it's given us for doing great work, actually making a difference in people's lives.
Ankur, that is so beautiful. I think your dad has been a visionary, and taking such a vision forward is it's very, very absorbing, and I think very mesmerizing in its own way, because it's not very easy to think at an early stage about senior living communities. It's not a concept which is very, very popular in India as yet, right? So I'm pretty sure you guys are the pioneers in your own way. So the idea of developing a senior living community is very uplifting in itself. So, how does this concept really work?
So the whole idea, what we figured was, why was seniors choosing Bhiwadi, and they wanted a high quality of life. They were tired of infrastructure in the cities. They didn't have any friends, no relationships. So when we figured out the research, what we figured was the 3 4 things which comes on the top of the mind of the consumer. One was that this pollution free environment, green spaces kind of a thing. Second was the idea of safety. Cities have become very unsafe, both from physical safety to material theft, even from a health perspective. And thirdly, they were looking for companionship, building relationships, having a higher quality and purpose in life. These guys are all very accomplished, highly educated people, and as soon as they hit retirement, they lose any kind of self actualization, if you want to say that. So one of our purpose when we were looking at our senior living projects was to create an idea where people learn new skills, hold ones, have a lot of friends, find themselves very safe, have great walking environments, green environments without any disturbance. Obviously, we have dining services and ambulance and all the good stuff, which is related to it. But our largest purpose was to create, people having a higher quality of life. And what we heard from our seniors was fantastic, and that made us even more proud. Was this, some seniors who were taking about 6 7 insulin shots a week went to zero. There was a senior,
Wow.
yeah, so it was fantastic. And then there was one senior who had come in a in a wheelchair, started walking with a walking walker, and now is able to walk with just a stick. And that is quality of life changes. We saw seniors who did not know how to dance and are doing shows on the stages and enjoying it thoroughly. And that is what we believe in our senior living is the biggest difference, is that we're trying to change people's life and giving them purpose of a different kind.
I think that is very fulfilling in itself. I'm pretty sure you might have a story or two
personally close to you, because these stories just seem, just the fact that somebody is able to walk again, or feel healthier and have a better quality of life in their senior years, that itself is very rewarding, I'm pretty sure.
It has been it. So we have this program where we call it Jashan, where we get inter Ashiana senior living projects together. And they have a program, and I always attend it. And my wife says that the kind of blessings you get is crazy. I must be hugging about 100 customers during that time, talking to, having chats with more than 100 customers. It's a phenomenal feeling. It's just unbelievable what happens there. And when you get those kinds of compliments, where another compliment, where I was doing a webinar and a senior lady came to me, and she moved from Calcutta with her husband, and her husband was paralyzed, and she said, "Thank you, Ankur, my husband has started shaving by himself." And I was like, in the webinar, I couldn't even imagine, could not control my emotions. And it was just a thank thank you. It's just a great feeling.
Right, so overwhelming, right? I can imagine. But it's funny that we do have a section of people in seniors, and but most of the times, the Indian mentality is that you're supposed to either live in a joint family. There is this codependency. So you being able to give that independence to the senior community, I think by itself speaks volumes. So apart from being fulfilling, how does this business commercially sound viable to people? I mean, does it come across as a challenge for you?
This business started off when we started our first project. Our sales were through the roof, and we really did well. And I was very happy to see the kind of market it was. So when we did our feasibility study, we understood about 8% seniors anywhere in India live alone. And
Hmm.
India has been nuclearizing a lot more because of economic activity. And if you see world over, that's been true. As economic activity picks up, kids have lesser time, wife starts working, children become more important for them, which is important, which should be that you should need to spend time with children, and that leaves very limited space for parents, and also you have to move to different cities. So we were seeing that, and for us, luckily, our first project did very well, which gave us a lot of strength in doing more, and we then launched in Jaipur and Lavasa. Lavasa started off well, but it had its issues. Uh, Now has done all right, but we were having a lot better hopes on it. Jaipur actually started off very slow because for that particular location, this concept was even more alien, and took a lot of time till we delivered phase one. After that, it picked up and it has done very well. So we're excited about that. Now, if you look at our projects, what we did was then we went back and said, why don't we do another project in Bhiwadi if it has done well? And we launched a project in Bhiwadi, and we looked at the market, and what we figured out was south of India, specifically Chennai, has largest number of seniors living alone with the best per capita. And our volumes there has been from day one has been very, very good. Can you imagine a North India developer going into Chennai, doing senior living and being successful is has been very, very fulfilling. And from a pricing perspective, we actually have to spend more to construct senior living because of its special requirements, but we end up taking a larger premium also, which makes the financial thing far more viable.
Right. So entering into a South Indian market, like you said, for North Indian developers, did that have its own set of challenges, or was it your research and survey which gave you the right idea about getting into the right space?
I think the research in our thing gave us the right idea. We began very well, uh, and it was a great, great success in the beginning, and it has been since then. And we had to do a lot of work to show our trustedness in the South India market. So we actually took some consumers to bring them to our Jashan activities. We did a lot of stage shows where I spoke to consumers, met them, made a relationship which they could understand that these developers are to be trusted. So, and we also had a local partner who was with us. So the combination kind of worked.
Fantastic. Past few months have also seemed slightly difficult for a lot of organizations, and especially for real estate, it's kind of hit rock bottom in a lot of ways. How have you guys coped, and how have you guys kind of, kept your consistency running in such times?
So the first month when it hit us, we went back as an organization and said, what is our largest strength? And what seemed to is our consumers. So all our employees spend time on knowing our consumers better. It's the time where we spend talking, calling up customers, speaking to them, understanding their angst, their issues, building relationships, letting them know we're there for them. We had some seniors in our regular housing project who couldn't get vegetables, and we kind of helped them out with those, brought them medicines. We actually helped some consumers who were outside our project to get them deliveries out. So it was, the whole idea was to be a better quality citizen in the need of the hour. Obviously, as an organization, you can't just last on relationship, you have to build income again. And after a month we went back, starting doing sales. And as a matter of surprise to me, I don't know if it sounds really weird and most people won't believe me, but our sales kind of picked up and we had a lot of consumer interest. And both in senior living because of larger reasons, as seniors who are living alone in cities were having even a harder time, no maid coming, had to cook their own food, clean their own houses, to get vegetables and fruits and groceries were difficult, getting medicines, emergencies happening which could not be helped with. NOKs who were living abroad or other cities started calling us because they were looking for a safer place for their parents. And I think senior living has seen a large interest. But real estate in general is seeing a fairly decent interest in our case. So I'm kind of surprised.
That's a happy surprise. I mean, kudos to you guys for being able to pull it off. I'm pretty sure a lot of others are complaining around. So pleasant.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
very
pleasant surprise, and I'm glad. As an organization, I think the kind of hard work we our people do is kind of showing results.
so. What are the values, principles, or sort of your vision for Ashiana Housing?
So there are two parts. So let's talk about our values first, and then vision
Sure.
second. And so my dad always had this idea of that if we live, we care for each other. Okay. So there were stories about in our employees group which would always talk about, if I was sitting and doing even very work seriously, my dad would go to them and say something wrong. He's like, no, I'm just working. They're like, but just then smile, have a smile in your face. If you have any issues, I'm here for you. And he'd helped a lot of people in trouble. Even when he was actually on his deathbed, and he got operated for a tumor. And he was looking at this nurse who was working very efficiently. And my mom asked, what happened? Why are you staring at her? And she's like, she's efficient, but she's not smiling. Can you request her to smile? And that's the value the organization takes. It is, the idea is that if we're living, let's live happy, let's create an environment of happiness every time. So we stick to that, and that's the core of the organization. On the vision and the mission side, the idea is that if we're doing a good job, we want about a lakh of Indian families to try our kind of product, to see if we actually make a difference in their lives. So we're about at 15,000. We have another 85,000 to go, and it's a uphill task. But we believe if we continue doing what we're doing, more and more consumers want to live the quality of life we're giving.
First, I have to say that your father sounds like a force to reckon with, and I'm pretty sure he's got this positivity to him. It also is very exuberant in your voice when you're speaking, and the idea of happiness is so important. I think people have forgotten that idea in general, and they don't understand the concept of happiness anymore. It's something everybody is making a goal or objective in their lives, but nobody's really achieving it. What do you have to say about that?
I agree. So, nobody, I think it's important to have financial success, career success, but when sometimes we lose the basic essence. The idea of that is to get self actualization, which will create happiness. But if the goal of money becomes higher than everything else, I think we've lost life. And so I completely agree. The idea is that if we live very good life, if we give what we are born to give, and we're happy doing that, I think that's what life is all about.
I completely agree with you, Ankur, because you come across people who are constantly trying to be happy. Like you mentioned, the nurse, she was doing something, she's efficient at it, but there wasn't a smile on her face, and your father noticed that, right? Because I think people have an idea about happiness being an objective or a goal, but it's actually a state of mind. And if you make it your state of mind, there is a chance that you kind of broaden your horizon in the way you want to achieve things. So you guys seem to be doing a very purposeful and very fulfilling role and part in society also. So do you feel that there is more to accomplish? Do you think that there are more avenues that you have to kind of look into apart from the senior living communities?
So yes, we always are looking at innovating, at the same time, being sure that we're not forgetting where our strengths lie. Okay, so one of the other things we started over the last 4 years is this idea of kid-centric homes, and what we are innovating in that is this idea that in the middle income, a lot of moms now, to educate their children, either they're working, or if they are spending a lot of time, in the US they're called soccer moms, where a mom goes to take the kid for a class. The class is an hour, so the mom can't go anywhere. She ends up staying in the car, waits for the class to get over, picks up the kid, and comes back. Which was creating a huge issue for both a quality of life of mom and a quality of life of the kid with all the traveling. So we said, why don't we create homes where all these services are available at their doorstep? So we have three housing projects where there's a learning hub there, where and we have a live and learn program where we have an activities in charge who builds program of music, dance, arts and crafts, things like that. And so, like in a project of ours, kids went and made an ATM, made a hydro rocket. In a project, kids acted like traffic police, giving tickets to people who were not wearing helmets or thing. There was a group of kids which were called the Happiness Brigade, who were looking at building happiness in doing kind things to consumers, to residents around. So we are always trying to innovate and build things which are different.
And it's quite holistic, your approach. So you've gone to the senior communities, you're also doing something, kid centric.
Hmm.
Do you really think that in the future people are going to open up to these ideas more and there might be an increase in competition?
Yeah, there is already in senior living. We're seeing a lot of players. I'm actually the chairman of Association of Senior Living, and I'm kind of proud of the work we're doing as an association and the kind of people coming in. And earlier we couldn't see, we could count the number of developers in our hands, but now it's gone much further than that, and lots of them are doing quite amazing work. So I'm kind of proud of that. In kid centric, it's still a nascent stage. I think it'll take a few years to pick up. We also have to learn our ways to improve it. Consumers also have to understand the product. In the senior living, it was more easier to understand the product. In the kid centric, it becomes a little more difficult for them to understand the differentiation we bring on ground. So I think it'll take a little more time, but I think there's a huge market for it, because when we went back to our consumers on the kid centric side, the best way to check if it's working or not is if it's making a difference on ground or not. What your imagination was it true when it came alive? And so we went and checked with consumers, and there were stories about one kid being very shy when she was 4 5 years old, came, started dancing, went on to stage and become a very free person. Kids becoming very confident while making those hydro rockets, or kids going and making their own vegetables, are creating a difference in personality and that emotional strength of both. And I think was our purpose, and we're seeing results on ground. So I think people will catch up onto it, and there will be more products like that in the market, and which is good for the market.
Of course, that's quite futuristic. So, lessons you may have learned over this entire journey that you've had with working with different age groups, working with different kind of people, and of course, making happiness one of the core areas that one should definitely have accomplished in their lives. What are your lessons?
This is a difficult one. Lots of to think about. So one, consumers don't come in single. We can't draw them in a single way. So each consumers are different. They come from a different background. How do you keep innovating and thinking about them, and creating spaces which can take a lot of different kinds of consumers is going to be important. Second, to me, has been being in touch with consumers over a long periods of time teaches you a lot. So if I was in a business where I just sell and left the project without maintaining it, my knowledge would be quarter of what I have today. So just interacting with them, having a lot of it. So as an executive team, we're about 16 of us. We end up calling about two, three customers a month ourselves, just talking to them, trying to understand. So I think that kind of knowledge building is very important. For from a business perspective, my learning has been that being patient is very important. One of the things, with this high growth, very alternative thinking is this: everybody is in the speed of growth, and unicorns are the new buzzword. And I'm very scared of that word personally. I think we will lose the essence of sometimes doing great work if we just get hungry for growth. So I'm not saying don't be hungry for growth, but there is a time when you have to go back and see why you started business, what did you do it for, and are you achieving your purpose every day or not? And I think somewhere I find myself being impatient, looking at the outside world, and then coming back and saying, "What's my purpose?" And that's been helpful to me.
That's beautifully put. I like the idea of actually making sure that you balance that feeling out. For those who find themselves on the extreme end of those views, Ankur, for instance, there are people who do not know how to balance the simple feeling of fulfillment and contentment along with their ambitions or their dreams. So, how do you land up doing that so beautifully?
It's just very challenging. I don't know when you start going into different zones. So mentally, you have to keep pushing yourself on what you do. Um, to me, it's sometimes. So the story again is dad. Think of him as a big teacher. I actually got a book written about him and his learnings. So I
What's
remember
it called?
the book is called Wisdom from the Heart.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've not published it. It's morely for the companies and employees. The idea is that if and customers, the idea is if our employees read it, we practice those values more. They understand the company better. So from that, one day I remember there were two other real estate companies which were equal when I entered business in 2002. By 2005 6, they were three times our size. I was very impatient. Went back to dad and said, "Why aren't we being aggressive?" He said, "Are you happy in the quality of work you're doing?" I said, "I'm very happy." "You think you're making a difference? And are we growing?" I said, "Yes, all three are true." I said, "Then be patient. Sometimes growth will be very expensive." And then after about 7 years, I saw those two companies had become lower in our valuation. We had a much better reputation and had made a much better difference on consumer. So that was a big lesson learned for me in life. And now what it's still a difficult thing to go back to, but it's having those moments where you can think to yourself and say, what were your parameters, what were your success ratios, and did your balance sheet allow you to get to those success ratios or not? So we do make stretchable goals, but they're not so stretchable that it can break you. So I think the maybe the most important thing right now, just thinking loud, would be setting goals which are more doable and does not stretch your balance sheet or your life into a tailspin.
It's so delightful to hear these thoughts coming from somebody who's probably reached their epitome of success in different ways, because the fact that you have your designation to deal with, you have so many responsibilities and duties, but you're so involved in the kind of work that you do that you go down to the deepest level of understanding every aspect, because you can very clearly tell that from the stories that you've shared with us, right? Whether it be the kids or the seniors. So, how about a couple of pearls of wisdom for our listeners on how they must probably approach, a tough day or their goals or their lives in general? And this can be for anybody who's probably budding in the real estate industry or even otherwise.
So I think as people, and if you're in the leadership role, one of our biggest job is to care for our people. And the biggest, I heard one speaker talk, and I kind of liked it a lot. He said, managers can save more lives than surgeons. And the whole idea is if a good manager takes care of its people, they take care of their family, they actually create an environment for them to fulfill, actually makes managers life a lot better and the quality of life. So the kind of people you can touch by just being around and caring is huge. So I think one advice or one wisdom would be that take care of your people. That's your largest asset, that's your largest strength, that's your largest duty. And secondly, this idea of yin and yang, that being satisfied and still having hunger is going to be important. So every day, if you feel you're satisfied in what you've done, and still being hungry to achieve more will make it's almost like it'll preserve the core and stimulate progress. So the whole idea is that if you can be satisfied in what you've done today, but still looking for more, I think it'll make you better.
Superb. Thank you so much, Ankur. That was really nice. I think you said you don't have advice, but I'm pretty sure that will go a long way with people who are actually taking it and paying heed to it. Um,
Thanks, Zarina. You've been wonderful as a host. I heard you're a performance coach. Can I quickly ask you a question?
sure, sure. Please go ahead.
So, what is that one advice you give to
Mhm.
leaders? There's a lot of conversation going around on my mental stress right now, and
Right.
especially with this whole idea of Corona, business is not doing well. Having limited relationships and contact on the social side. What advice do you give people right now to be performers and keep taking care of their mental health?
A very interesting question. That's, like a advice for about 3 or 4 hours I can talk about this. But of course, to kind of sum it up in a nutshell for you or in general is the fact is that, leaders need to be visionaries. And the fact that you have been given this particular adversity or this challenge also leads to the fact that you will have a lot of opportunity if you seek and you understand it clearly. So not only are your finances and monetary aspects important right now, but looking after your people, like you've been saying throughout this entire episode, is so important. Most of that can happen if you change your mindset from just being a leader to being a transformational leader. If you're looking at growth, but you're also looking at helping people step up, it kind of changes the entire purview and perspective of the way you're running your leadership. So, my advice usually at this point is, of course, being patient, but thinking through your adversity, thinking of the opportunities even during these times, because there have been a lot of people who have landed up upping their game even in such crisis. And that's only possible because there was a certain vision they saw earlier, or their people have stuck by them even though they have not been able to pay them off. So a large part of good leadership currently is the fact that if you want to lay off people, you do it sensitively. If you want to kind of cut salaries, you do it a little smartly. Be there for the mental health of your organization, because it's very important. And breadwinners really need to go out there and do their bit. So just make sure that everybody is just about comfortable and you consistently get through this time, because transformation is going to happen. And it's just like, the caterpillar into the butterfly. So we're in the caterpillar phase. We have to struggle, but if we don't struggle, we're not going to turn into that beautiful butterfly. So that's usually what I've been telling all the leaders around me.
Thank you, Zarina. That was very insightful.
Okay, so thank you, Ankur, for asking me that question. And we're coming to the end of this conversation. Because it's the Empowering series, I must ask you, what empowers you, Ankur?
I think great quality time with family, some time on my squash courts on my health. I think taking care of your health, having some time with yourself, and having a great family time is what empowers me.
Okay, that's absolutely beautiful. So, on that note, Ankur, anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to share with us before we end this conversation?
No, I love this idea of a podcast, and thank you for asking all those questions. It was a great, remembering dad is always a great feeling, and I felt really good. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. And your father's been a visionary, and I'm pretty sure you're taking the legacy ahead with the same amount of love and compassion for people, for lives, and being purposeful like you are. All the very best to you, all the very best to Ashiana Housing Limited, and good luck and kudos for the lovely work you do.
Thank you so much.
All right.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. We appreciate their support. It's been a fantastic week on the IVM network. I hope that you've been checking stuff out, but some of the highlights that you definitely should check out. Ashish Vidyarthi, host of Begin the Journey, was on Cyrus Says. They had a really fun conversation. I think you'll enjoy that. Uncle Please Sid did an episode around development, which was really, really fun. On Edges and Sledges, we had Adam Holyoke, former England captain. Wow, those guys are killing it, one cricketer after the other. Definitely do check out Advertising is Dead. We talk about esports with some really guys who really know that space. Smile India, absolutely right. These guys are killing it as well. So is Pawan at Pragati. Don't forget The Original Things. Again, one of my favorite shows. You must check that out. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
Namaskar, dear Bandhu. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. These are truly challenging times, and in these times, we need hope. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey. Available on IVM Podcasts, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, there is hope because there's one life and we are alive.